Good morning, everyone. Bon dia if you are in the Americas, boa tarde, or good afternoon if you're in Africa or Europe. Welcome to the fourth day of the All Atlantic Summit. Today, the focus of the meeting is on the fuel that is responsible for the success of networks across the Atlantic, so international collaboration. After the plenary session, we will move to 6 sessions today instead of 4, which are co-organized by GeoBond. These sessions focus on Air Center missions of observations for policy for improved resource management of oceans, coasts, and marine ecosystems. So from 10:30 until noon EDT, or 14:30 to 1600 UTC, we have 2 sessions. The first is on sustainable fisheries. The second is on sustainable aquaculture. From noon, 13:30 EDT to 1600 or 1600 to 1730 UTC, we have coastal observations and seagrass. And then last but not least, we have 2 parallel sessions from 1330 to 1500 EDT or 1730 to 1900 UTC on corals and sargassum. Now, just as a note to the audience, the sessions may go into extended time, or what someone says is overtime, after 80 minutes. And then you would see a link which would take you to a Zoom breakout room. Now, while some of you might think that, in fact, the game has ended, the clock has just been reset. What we've seen in the earlier days is that these sessions are very interactive, so people leave their presentation mode and speak more freely. And so we really want the attendees to stay on and listen and participate. Finally, before you go to your breakout room, you will see a link with your thoughts about the sessions. And I mean, you in Brazil, Angola, Senegal, Ghana, Bermuda, Barbados, like we need to hear your feedback. So please give your feedback in the survey as we're trying to figure out how to increase our interaction. And just remember that you are the you in sustained Atlantic interactions. So with that, have a good and safe day wherever you are. And with that note in Philly lingo, I'll say, yo, Leah, over to you.
Thank you so much, Greg. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Leah Mupas Sigi, and I am a policy fellow with GeoBlue Planet and the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration based in the US. And I will be serving as the moderator of this session. This week has been filled with talks ranging from coastal threats to challenges to opportunities. And one of the themes that has come out is the need for this increased collaboration and inclusive capacity building initiatives across various sectors to set roadmaps for the Atlantic region. And so the session will explore effective ways for collaboration and prepare concrete opportunities. Our panelists work at the interface of science, policy, and practice, and I welcome them and their perspectives on international collaboration. Today we have John White from the Consortium of Ocean Leadership in the US, Emily Smail from GeoBlue Planet, Sigi Gruber from the European Commission, and Abdoulaye Diagana from the Abidjan Convention Secretariat, UN Environment Program. For the plenary session, we will have 4 presentations, 10 minutes each, followed by a Q&A session. And as Greg said, we're gonna have overtime. So please join us in the breakout room for further discussion. And you will see a link in the chat. So with that, I'd like to get started with our first speaker. And that will be John White. So Rear Admiral John White who's retired, was instated as president and CEO of the Consortium for Ocean Leadership in January 2016. Prior to this, John had a distinguished 32-year career as an oceanography and meteorology officer for the US Navy, culminating in his assignment as oceanographer and navigator of the Navy from 2012 to 2015. John's passion for the ocean began at a very early age as he grew up along Florida's Gulf Coast. He earned a Bachelor of Science degree in oceanography from the Florida Institute of Technology and a Master's of Science degree in oceanography and meteorology from the US Naval Postgraduate School in Monterey, California. John, welcome.
John, please unmute.
All right, I said so many great and wonderful things. You've all missed it. I apologize. Anyway, I'll get started again. Thank you. As Greg said, there's nothing more important than the amount of concrete steps we can make using active collaboration around our ocean planet. And I think a lot of that can start in the Atlantic. And we've seen great examples of that. And I'm just honored to be a part of this with you. Therefore, I'm going to walk through a few slides in my 10 minutes here, hopefully leave you with some ideas of how do we create organizations that can advance that collaboration, and what are some of the concrete things we should be thinking about, aligned with all the other ocean things that are going on right now, not to mention in the midst of a pandemic, and of course in the US in the midst of an election cycle. My organization, again, is a nonprofit group representing over 90 members, largely academic, some industry, some other philanthropic, when really we just want to advance ocean science and various types of ocean tech to really just do what's right for our ocean and for everything that lives on our planet. As you can see, we say in the US, since basically we're known as COL, you can't spell the word without COL. Has been talked about here across the days of this conference, certainly. We are at a point here, I think, an inflection point of what the future looks like for our ocean and our planet. We understand threats to our sustainability. We understand the risks involved, but I think we also understand the way that we balance that is through investments in science and technology and ocean type of efforts. And we must do that in a highly collaborative and enthusiastic type of means. And it really gets into this piece of, yes, it's the ideas, it's the smarts, it's the research, and it's really using science to make the right decisions going forward. We know what the challenges are that were talked about and have been talked about. These are a few, but not all of them that we face, that certainly are that we face in our ocean and coasts. We also know there are great opportunities in terms of science, things that I never dreamed about when I was going through undergraduate school. And the means of exchanging data was the mail. So that's how we did it. That's how we've done it for a long time, but that is no longer that. But look at artificial intelligence. I'm just so enthusiastic. I'm optimistic because I see the great men and women that are doing this around our planet. And I think we can solve those challenges if we can just figure out how to keep the ball moving. This is a value chain that I believe is important to understand how science informs the right decisions. And how do we do that, and how we bring together the right people, because we can't invest enough in the data that we need to advance toward the analysis, understanding what the impact of the analytical efforts are, and how do we get to that. This is what our community is about. We've got to bridge the science to the right decisions. And I think that's what the UN Decade and many other efforts are really focusing on. And that's the organizations that can do that are of paramount importance. I suggest this is where we are today. We are enthusiastic, but it's a little bit like a little kid's soccer practice. Everyone's got their own ball. We have a few organizations here, there, we're working good, it's sort of entertaining, but it doesn't get to the needs of our ocean. And I think the UN Decade, the people that put that together in the IOC understood that. And that I think over the next, hopefully less than 10 years, we can advance to this level and really get after a world-class level effort of ocean, really ocean science and tech that advances the needs of our ocean and really gets us to the ocean that we want. We need ships, not Navy ships. I love Navy ships. Navy ships are great things for great purposes if they're used right. But the ships that we need, not just oceanographic research ships, I'll come back to that shortly, but the ships that we need are these ships. It's the leadership, it's the ownership of the problem, the stewardship, the resources and partnerships that we're going to be talking a lot about. So I'm going to give you a few constructs and ideas of how I think this might work. I'll start with leadership. In the US right now, leadership has not been absent in ocean science and technology. Leadership has actually done a lot of great things. They have all been focused on largely on domestic issues. This was a White House summit we had less than a year ago. It brought together 100 or just over 100 of the most brilliant scientists in the US to look at partnerships and how we advance it. Unfortunately, the international leadership and influence of the US has been absent. I'm hoping that will change in the coming days, regardless of the outcomes of the election. Our government in many areas is focused on that. So, but this is that we've got to transform the leadership that we're doing internally to more of an externally, and we need to look at senior cabinet level officials in the US and ministerial officials to form an organization that can get after these issues as a related, but also a separate and maybe even more important issue than the overall climate change problem. Look at the opportunities that we have right now. Look at what's already been done. Ocean Obs 19, over 70 nations in Honolulu a year ago. That was great. We really started to form organizations of partnerships and collective impact organizations with structures to really get after some of the problems of observing and monitoring our ocean as it needs to be done. We talked about the UN Decade. A look at what they've done with AOR. We'll hear from Sigi, but certainly the European Commission, the European Union, working with Canada and the US, but growing the partnerships and really creating, again, a model organization of how you advance this and how you synchronize. One of the things that came out recently this year was a blueprint, things like, the work of toward a seabed, the seabed 2030 project, mapping that. It's a great goal. We're looking at the US, we're just trying to map our own exclusive economic zone by them. The 30 by 30 blueprint that people are coming up with. These are all ideas, but then how do you organize? Who are the people that you bring on board to create a group that can lead this effort? And that's really what we have got to do. It's got to be structured, a leadership type of organization, and some type of thing that has an ongoing effort with goals and priorities that are measured. And I think we're starting to see that again, thanks to a lot of leadership in these efforts. Look at the implementation plan of the UN Decade. It's detailed, it's structured, but it does get after the how, not just the what, not just the ocean that we want, but how to get there. Again, I go after the partnerships, and these are critically important. We have sectors. These are largely the sectors that have the resources, the fiscal and even the intellectual types of capital. From philanthropic groups, we see more and more coming up with Rev Ocean and others about building tremendous types of capability and capacity. Now we need to look at government, industry, but bring it all together in a model where we can look at what are the shared priorities, what are the shared interests, what are the shared plans, and then how do we develop a strategic plan, operational plans that get after this? Where are my ships going to be? Where are my people going to be? How do we work in full cooperation? I look again at some of the efforts that are ongoing right now. One is biodiversity. As we look at really trying to understand the whether it's biodiversity beyond national jurisdiction or global ocean biodiversity, these type of efforts. I compliment the work of AORA, looking at a marine microbiome roadmap. That's one effort. I think that's an example of how you spell this out. Looking at the work of MBON under GeoBON, looking at the work that is ongoing. And I take you back to the Census of Marine Life. We've done this already. We brought thousands of scientists in a group starting in 2000 and then worked through 2010 to get that done. It was a decade. Now we're starting in 2020. We need a renewed census using things like environmental DNA and other genomics, using ocean sound to create an action plan to really understand the biodiversity. We will never understand what the actual breaking points of ecosystems and fisheries are if we can't understand it and predict it. And we have a long way to go, again, from little kids soccer. I'll also get after, in terms of leadership and partnership, that we have great opportunities to do these types of things. And these are the things that we must do, with what collaboration, the ring that brings them all together and hopefully binds them toward an action plan. The exploration, mapping, observing, understanding, predicting, all these things. I spell research with a $sign on purpose. Education. We started at the U.S. Our vice presidential debate last night. The best question asked was by an 8th grader. The young people have ideas. They understand the importance, and we need to listen to them, listen to their questions and their ideas. And at the end of the day, we've got to look at things like, where are all the research fleets of all the nations in the Atlantic actually going to be in the next 2 years? What are the opportunities? Can we share opportunities for research? What is our ocean observation plan? What are the regional plans? How do we bring in industry and all the others and create shareholders instead of stakeholders? Again, collective impact regional organizations. Those models are out there. They're well known in business. We've got to apply them to ocean science, getting to the end that we want. And again, we need to prioritize what our interests are across all those sectors and create the right type of structures to invest in them smartly and wisely. And if we do that, I really believe we can get to a vision of the ocean that we want. We all understand what that is, but we can only do that if we increase the level of collaboration and really look at structural organizations. And I look forward to questions and answers, more specifics about that going forward. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your commitment to our ocean and our future.
John, thank you so much for that, and excellent timing. I really enjoyed that imagery of these little kids playing soccer and where we want to be moving forward. So thank you for that. Next, we have Dr. Emily Smail. And Dr. Emily Smail is Executive Director of GeoBlue Planet, where she builds long-term collaborations with diverse stakeholders, including policymakers, government agencies, and local leaders. She specializes in using science to support informed decision-making and the development of effective ocean, conservation, and development policies. Real quick, before Emily comes on, I want to mention that we do have a chat available. So if you have any questions throughout the talks, please enter them in the chat, and we'll get to them after all the presentations are finished. So with that, I welcome Dr. Emily Smail.
Thank you, Leah. So today I'm going to provide some thoughts on practices and pathways for international collaboration that will hopefully contribute to some of our discussion later on. But first, I would like to thank our hosts. So this is me in an undisclosed year in the 2000s, graduating from Penn State. And then I also have a picture here of myself and our steering committee co-chair Kwame from the University of Ghana at an Air Center workshop in Cape Verde, back when we were able to travel and get together. But I'll start here with giving just a short overview into the Group on Earth Observations, which is the organization that GeoBlue Planet is part of. And GEO is an intergovernmental organization that works to improve the availability, access, and use of Earth observations for the benefit of society. And GEO has over 100 member countries and over 100 participating organizations, which are groups who either use or produce Earth observation information. And GEO works to support currently 3 global policy mandates: the Paris Climate Agreement, the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and the Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction. And GEO has different thematic as well as regional groups. And so GEO Blue Planet is the coastal and ocean arm of GEO. And so we work to support ocean and coastal observations and trying to get value-added information out of the observations and linking them with societal needs. As far as international collaboration goes, I just have a few of the global networks here. So I work with GEO Blue Planet, but there are many other global networks for collaboration. And I know today we are talking about regional collaboration, which also is a very important aspect of international collaboration. And one thing that we need to keep in mind is that for the ocean, we have many different stakeholders that we are trying to reach. These include managers, policymakers, civil society, as well as scientists, people who work on different types of aspects of what's often known as the value chain. So taking data and turning it into information that can be used for decision making, as well as private companies that take this information and turn it into products for their clients, as well as a lot of non-governmental organizations and nonprofits. So it's a diverse landscape, and we're working together to try to support collaboration across all of these sectors. So because it's such a diverse landscape, I'll just point out that GEO Blue Planet has created, at the request of stakeholders at some of our past meetings, a tool called Oceanscape, which is a tool where people can register their organizations and add information about geographic scope and specialty. So we would like to encourage people to register or just look at the existing organizations that are available in Oceanscape. So today I'm going to give a short overview about some pillars for successful collaboration. So we have one that is convergence around common goals, effective communication, and co-production of information and knowledge. So the ocean community really is coming together, and it's an exciting time where we have the Decade of Ocean Science, and then we also have the Sustainable Development Goals, where we have a specific goal that is related to the ocean. And member countries have been organizing meetings specifically for SDG 14, Life Below Water, and it's the only goal that has had such meetings. And so it's really an exciting time for us to come together and hopefully realize the importance of our ocean. And I'm going to move forward by giving a few examples of different types of communication. And so this is an example from our colleagues at the University of Ghana, who are working on projects that are in collaboration with the European Commission, where you have to really tailor how you are reaching out to people. And so this is an example where they are working with fisheries communities who have cell phones, and that is primarily how they get their information. And they have done a lot of outreach specifically with the communities and are sending out very simple alerts where they have different levels, where it will be calm, it will be advisory, or they recommend people not going fishing. And they actually have worked with the fishermen to put tags on the vessels where they can track where they are in return for an emergency button. If they get in trouble, that they can push it and then the Coast Guard can come out and provide them assistance. And I think that this is something that we really need to take into consideration, is that you need to look at local populations. I know that we're talking about a all Atlantic communication, but how local people get their information varies based on where you are, and really working with the current infrastructure and society is really important in terms of getting information out. We also need to look at how we are co-producing information and knowledge. So there is a lot of work done about how to get information out to different stakeholders. And it's very important in the beginning when you are trying to produce a decision support tool or reaching out to stakeholders, that you engage them at the very beginning and then work with them throughout, so that you are engaging them and providing information in a way that is useful to them. And a lot of what we have discussed is when you initially reach out to people, there is a lot of discussion about how high in the process you go in. So there are, in the scientific community, people expect sometimes society and different stakeholders to have a higher level of understanding of products or data, or even the importance of ocean, than they do. And so it's important to come in a effective way of communication so that you understand where they're at. And an example of using this knowledge and producing it with stakeholders. So for example, related to ocean acidification, this is an example from the West Coast of the United States, where shellfish farmers were having problems with their spat, which are larval oysters. And they worked directly with the observing systems to identify when the best time was to put out their spat so that the pH levels in the ocean were good for growing. And they actually ended up putting in sensors in their farms, their oyster farms, and working together. And it's really, a great example of how you can tie in science information if you have the stakeholders who are really impacted by the environment. And so this is just an example of some of the data that came out of that collaboration, where you actually have sensors at these shellfish farms, and it really helps the farmers to understand the ocean as well as how it impacts their industry. And so I'll stop there and look forward to hearing from our other speakers and for our discussion later.
Thank you so much, Emily. I appreciate you highlighting the need for both this regional Atlantic strategy, but also local actions. And I appreciate the concrete examples you have about how you share information along with stakeholder engagement. And a quick plug for the Sustainable Fisheries session later today, if you want to hear more about the work being done at the University of Ghana. So thank you, Emily. Next, we have Sigi Gruber. And Sigi started working for the European Commission in 1991 with different responsibilities in the area of education and training, as well as research. And prior to joining the European Commission, she worked in the public and private sector in Italy and Germany. She is now the head of Healthy Oceans and Seas Unit, Directorate General for the Research and Innovation, European Commission. Sigi, welcome.
Thank you very much, Leah. Hello and good morning or good afternoon to wherever you are. Thank you also for putting on my slides. Can you put them on, please? So that I can say next slide. Thank you very much. Thank you as well to our hosts and to the Air Center for inviting me and for putting together such a great panel where I can say these are the friends of the Atlantic I'm sharing. As you can see, I have put on connecting, acting, cooperating as a kind of leitmotif, which a little bit resonates what John was saying, the discovery, understanding, and action. I think we can go well along. So I will try to explain to you, walk you through how we actually see that and how we can really now put the focus on acting and cooperating. Thank you. Next slide. Our journey for the Atlantic started back in 2013. Officially, it started a little bit earlier, but I show you just this slide because what is important is that we have created as well a kind of top-down framework within which we try to unfold our cooperation from government to government, but also allow to create these framework conditions for researchers to work together and for community then to benefit from the solutions. Next slide, please. I wanted to show you where and how we focus our cooperation. First of all, it is really, we have a challenge-driven approach. We have identified our challenges together, and John, you pointed them out. There are additional ones. But what is really important as well for us is how we organized this work. We try to align and leverage research activities that are already there. So it is not creating new structures, but take advantage of the opportunities for synergy. Very important is the use of infrastructure and installations and provide reciprocal access. And this is something that we are continuing really to put forward as one of the aims of our cooperation. We want, of course, to better coordinate, and we have to, we heard it as well. We need all this data sharing, interoperability. And Emily also really put the focus on the co-creation, because for whom are we doing this? We do this really for the communities. I will come back to promoting research mobility and the coordination and programming level cooperation for the better alignment of existing resources is something I think we can look with certain pride on how we connect existing initiatives. They are funded at one side of the Atlantic, but they are mirrored on the other side of the Atlantic. And that is where the connecting element comes in. Next slide. We have also extended our cooperation not only to the North Atlantic, but also through the Belém Statement, which we signed with South Africa and with Brazil in 2017. We have extended it to an All-Atlantic Ocean Research Alliance. And you can see the working methods and the priorities are very, very much the same. So that is what has given rise to many, many cooperative links. Next slide. I give you a taste by some of the projects that we have funded and where we have our international partners. The Air Center is now in the Atlantic and in the Mission Atlantic, so two recently launched projects. We want to see many, many more projects. And for that reason, we also have created, next slide, please, a one-stop portal, which is supported through the Anchor project, which is a kind of coordination support action, which really supports now the whole development of our cooperation along and across the Atlantic Ocean. As you can see, we have many, many, many numbers in Europe, but there are other countries, the United States, for example, we have 12. That is nothing. We have so many activities going on. John and Emily, you are best placed. So please, in future, can we connect our different ongoing activities so that we provide an opportunity as well for other people to learn where can they join, where can they find the solutions that they so much need. And also, Emily, you showed the ocean scape. Let's also please make sure that there is a very well connecting element and that we both can profit from each other. So that the who is who and what is doing what becomes really a reality. And even if there are projects funded by European funds, we very often, and these projects as well, organize large events. And particularly now that we are connecting ourselves virtually, there's always an opportunity for someone to learn, for someone to be connected. And the Atlantic has so many challenges. So the cooperation, which is based on mutual trust, mutual interest, I think is a must. Next slide, please. John, you mentioned the importance of the youth. Yes, we have to listen to them. We have to empower them because they are the ones they came forward, which we collectively have put in place. Not only we, but many, many other people. But this is something where we have a great responsibility. And for that reason, we have launched last year, together with all our partners along and across the Atlantic Ocean Youth Forum. And we have created this first cohort of Atlantic Ocean Youth Ambassadors, 23 young people from 15 countries. They have chosen 3 different campaigns, a great job, but this is something that we now want to continue. We are going to relaunch the whole expression of interest for trying to recruit new youth ambassadors, the so-called old ones. We will take them as mentors. And in that way, we are trying to see, can we really enlarge the youth and the talent base on the Atlantic? Can we bring them into all the ongoing, many of the ongoing research activities so that they can learn by doing research, and in that way they can be empowered. Young people are very good communicators. They're much better than we are. So let's send them out, let's talk them, let's really give them the power of storytelling so that they can bring the importance of the ocean back to the communities. And I would like to extend as well an invitation to the different panelists here, but also to the Air Center to take part in these ocean ambassadors. We have to look who is going to fund what, but don't miss out to have some young people who have this opportunity. Next slide, please. One of the big novelties of our future 10 years ahead of us and of our future Horizon Europe Research and Innovation Program, which is the next framework program, are so-called missions. We were inspired by the Apollo mission, and we wanted to come up with something which really connects us to people, which delivers a public good, which matters in terms of solution to the people. We have had for 1 year a high-level working group working. They delivered their report last week. It is called Mission Starfish 2030, Restore Our Ocean and Waters. So this is a report that has been handed over to the Commission. We are now trying to see what are we going to make out of it. We are as well inspired by the great work that these scientists, and not only scientists, have delivered to us. They have taken the starfish as an example. And why? Because we have identified 5 objectives. First of all, it's filling the knowledge and emotional gap. And that was also said, if we don't know, we cannot protect. We have a knowledge gap. We know that there is so little that we still need to know about the ocean. Another objective is that we need to regenerate marine and freshwater ecosystems. And you will see that one of the big challenges that we have ahead and we have taken on board is to connect the whole aquasphere. So it is the marine and the inland water world, which is what actually matters because they are connected. And to do this in a holistic manner is going to be challenged. We are trying to see how can we really strive for zero pollution. How can we decarbonize our ocean and seas? Because this, whatever this mission will deliver, it is going to really contribute to the European Green Deal, which has a very ambitious target. As you might know, we have set ourselves the target. Europe has to become a climate neutral planet by 2050. So this mission will have to play a major part. And the last thing is we need a new governance model. Otherwise, we will not succeed. So with that, I end, and I'm happy as well to be part of the panel and to answer your questions. Thank you very much. Keep in touch.
Great. Sigi, thank you so much. And thanks for making these steps so clear about connecting, acting, and also cooperating. And so I look forward to engaging with you in the discussion. Next, we have Dr. Abdoulaye Diagana, and his research focuses on institutional development and environmental issues in Africa, including pollution, biodiversity conservation, resilience to climate change, regional cooperation on environmental issues, governance, development, decentralization, gender issues, political change. So he's got a lot of experience. He is also a member of several panels and steering committees on environmental issues. Since 2017, he has been working for the Abidjan Convention Secretariat as the head of partnerships, communication, and resource mobilization, as well as the project manager and thematic leader on pollution. Abdoulaye, welcome.
Thank you, and I'm happy, I'm delighted to be here to share this panel with you, and thank you for giving me this opportunity. Before addressing the subject, I would like to make a brief presentation of the Abidjan Convention so that you can get to know your future partner in international collaboration. Next slide, please. The Abidjan Convention is administered by the by UNEP. We cover all the Atlantic shoreline of the African continent. It's 22 countries from Mauritania to South Africa, and we host 3 large marine ecosystems: Canaria, Guinea, and Benguela. Next, please. We in the Abidjan Convention have 5 protocols, additional protocols in integrated management of coastal zones, on sustainable management of mangroves, and oil and gas activities, and another one on LBSA. This is the first one. And we have another means to deal with accidents and, for example, the critical incident emergency protocol. Next slide, please. Let's say the Abidjan Convention was like this, was acting like this since, let's say, 40 years now. We are first facing a lot of challenges now. As we all know, the extraordinary thing about the pandemic we are experiencing now is that a lot has been said about a virus about which very little is known. But what is most extraordinary is that humanity is experiencing a rare opportunity to make a qualitative leap, a kind of Copernican revolution, by taking stock of the meaning of life and life on Earth, on our relationship with our environment, and on the action to be taken so that our planet can be great again, or green again, or blue again. Next slide, please. For this we have, can you please come back to the previous one? We need to face to this situation to rely on 3 axes. The first one is climate change. In the Abidjan Convention, we need to work to understand what is, to better understand the phenomenon of the climate change, its impacts on life, on Earth, and on the living environment, the means to adapt to it. On this point, and to stay in the news of the Abidjan Convention area, the coast of Mauritania was the scene of a spectacular phenomenon. It's about 3 weeks ago, where huge quantities of fish were spilled on the shore, raising a lot of questions. For example, what causes this? Is it due to the ocean raising of ocean temperature, acidification, eutrophication? We still don't know, and we will see later that we need to enhance the cooperation on research to better understand the phenomenon. Next, please. The second axis deals with the loss of biodiversity, which must urgently be slowed down considerably. COVID-19 has come to remind us that the fact of colonizing more and more space and encroaching on the territories of other species is not without consequences for mankind. And this will increasingly result, according to specialists or experts, in the growth of zoonoses. To tackle this, the Abidjan Convention is about to adopt an additional protocol on MPAs, marine protected areas. At the same time, we are going to strengthen the network of MPAs either by improving the management of those that already exist, or by creating new MPAs, like in Côte d'Ivoire. Last week, they created 5 new MPAs in Côte d'Ivoire. Next, please. The third axis is about pollution, especially man-made pollution. We will initiate the process of drawing up a regional action plan to combat plastic pollution. This regional framework will then be translated into national action plans in each of the 22 member states of the Abidjan Convention. Next, please. These points bring together all the actors of conversation and all those who care about the good health of our planet. And it's because we are all here convinced of the need for global and concerted action that initiative like this one are being carried out. We in the Abidjan Convention are resolutely committed to the formulation of appropriate responses to contemporary and future environmental challenges. We provide the state parties and our partners with a regional framework with the legal instrument for intervention in the areas for which we have the mandate from the member states. But to achieve this, we face challenges. I will not mention all of them, but maybe 3 or 4. Next, please. No, this one, please, the previous one. Yes, for example, for the, I forgot to mention that on this, the third axis, COVID-19 brings a new challenge about turning around gloves and mass pollution. This is another problem to tackle in the Abidjan Convention area. Next, please. So among the challenges I mentioned, we have the availability of reliable data. To be effective, decision must be documented and based on the quality information. There are potential areas of research that are on the radar due to lack of coverage by the research community. I suggest that we work to democratize access to data and to reduce the size of those white spots on the map of our planet for which data is scarce or non-existent. So this can be a first point on which we can work. We see the framework of the Abidjan Convention in partnership with USAID and IBM. We have developed research centers that will soon be made available to the public. But one thing is to create the container, another one is to find the content. And you are invited to contribute to it as best you can. The second challenge is the community mobilization. Raising community awareness and involving them in identifying and managing challenges. This will raise not only the issue of information and data collection, but also that of dissemination and inclusion. I suggest that we continue community mobilization effort around the Atlantic. The Abidjan Convention wishes to learn from your experience, and you mentioned it, Sigi. For example, with the youth ambassador, we are about to create our own network of youth ambassadors in the Abidjan Convention area, and we will be really happy to learn from your experience. Next, please. So the next challenge is availability of means. John, I think, mentioned the vessels, laboratories, training exchanges. I recommend that within the framework of international collaboration, we pay particular attention to this point. There are research institutions that do excellent work thanks to the goodwill of talented experts and researchers, but with limited means. And Emily shows the experience in ECOWAS region with this Ghanaian talented researchers. So we need to extend this kind of experiences. It is urgent to reach out to them and connect them to the global research and innovation chain. Next, please. This is our partners. You can join us. But before finishing, I would like to give these concrete proposals. I suggest to further discussing how to foster co-design solution-oriented research, building on our respective experiences and specific challenges. We need to seek a clear understanding of the barriers to collaborative research and behavior change at each step of the process. Co-design, co-production, and co-delivery that need to be addressed to create the right condition to develop collaborative research projects. We can discuss on what is the best scale, whether it's regional, national, or international. We can discuss about it. And last point, identify 1 or 2 activities to be conducted in a pilot phases. For example, market for plastic waste, how to transform it, for example. So I conclude by renewing the call of the Abidjan Convention for more inclusion and more bridges, so that the vision is that of a global Atlantic. We have understood this so well that we have chosen Brazil, the mirror of the Atlantic Africa, as the distinguished guest of our next COP13, which will take place in Pointe Noire in Congo in, we hope, April 2021, if COVID is defeated, bien sûr, with the theme of governance of the ocean. So the theme would be the ocean governance. In the meantime, do not hesitate to contact us so that we can develop the cooperation on the whole Atlantic coast of Africa, and so that you can have your logo in our banner of star. Thank you, and see you soon, we hope. Bye.
Abdoulaye, thank you so much. And thanks for giving us an introduction to the Abidjan Convention. I think it's important for us to understand what the priorities are for the convention and how they relate to both the space and wide strategy for the Atlantic while addressing local needs. So thank you. And I thank all of our panelists today. You've done an incredible job just showing us the different networks that exist throughout the Atlantic and how we could start to bring them together to really move forward in addressing our global environmental issues, especially given the decade that's starting next year. How could we use the existing structures to really make advances in marine and coastal issues? And so we have a number of questions in the chat, and I'll go through them in order. Just a reminder that this session ends promptly at 10:20 Eastern time, but there is going to be a link for a Zoom breakout room for us to continue the conversation if it goes over. Okay, so I'll start with the first question I see in the chat. This is to John from Jerry. I applaud your call for a second census of marine life. We now have new observing tools, so a second census could be even more comprehensive. But what about the costs? As of year 8 of the first census, I calculated that about $850 million US had been invested, including in-kind support like ship time. The Sloan Foundation not only catalyzed the census, but also provided a substantial fraction of the total cost. Who should play that role for the second census?
Well, Jerry, always cutting to the hard question of who's going to fund. I suggest that there are great opportunities for the federal governments of all of the ocean organizations around the world to partner. And again, I talked about up front, and I see this really as we see the rise of industries that are becoming involved in ocean issues. Again, as shareholders, they need the information. We see the rise of philanthropic interest. Much of the work that would be needed to really to start a new census, to use the existing things, again, such as MBON under GeoBON or the Biodiversity Observation Network, of really but it's really a matter of getting everybody on the same playing field, again, going to that World Cup level. And I think if you get the right type of leaders in a room and chart out what is it going to cost, I think costs have come down. The ability to get more data certainly has gone up. Our new types of, whether it's the in situ or sensing types of capabilities. But again, some of the ways we look at life, measure life, I think a lot of those have come down. Also, the ability to virtually go in and convene around the world like we're doing now. The huge travel costs for Census One, we don't need that anymore. Huge ship costs, as you mentioned, those can be driven way down because of autonomy and other means. So, so as far as who and how, it's a matter of priorities. But I think if there's global leadership and it starts with the Atlantic, I am absolutely convinced, because I think more has been done in that basin than anywhere. But if we start there and set a model using the resources that are available, and we can, again, get senior leaders of our governments to help launch this, I think it's very doable, and the resources are there, and they're even being spent now.
Okay, thank you for that. So yes, it seems like funding is always a challenge to make projects work, but there are opportunities, definitely. The next question. Let's see, there are so many activities around the Atlantic that it is difficult to follow them all. Is there a hub or a one-stop shop where we could start to navigate? And I think, Sigi or Emily, if you want to talk about these platforms that you have to help networking, or if you know of other ones for the Atlantic.
Maybe if I can come in, is that okay?
Sure.
Yeah. Yes, I showed already on my slides the Anchor portal. That is a All Atlantic Ocean Research Alliance portal, which brings together different ongoing research cooperative activities. And by clicking, you can really find out what projects are going on, which organizations are involved, what are the expected deliverables. And this is something which now will be revamped by our partners running it in Portugal. Sofia Cordera, you might know her. And by end of November, it will be finalized, actually, for the next All Atlantic Ocean Research Alliance Forum on the 3rd and 4th of December, to which I will invite you, because that, again, will be a great networking opportunity. And what we are discussing now is also to see how the Air Center could in future also enhance the networking element that they have already started with the Friday seminars every fortnight, which is a great initiative. Congratulations to the colleagues from the Air Centers. And so that we start really connecting. And yet that's why I invite everyone, and I invited also Emily, that we need to connect our portals and initiatives so that we ease the access to information, because that's the first step, I think, to the networking and to the profiting. Thank you.
Thank you, Sigi. So I'll weigh in as well and say, yes, that everything that Sigi pointed out, it would be great if everyone could register for the Anchor portal. And the Air Center, I do think, has a lot of potential to help with this. I think one thing that has been a challenge in connecting networks in the Atlantic is that there are many different languages that are spoken. So, you know, we have English, French, Portuguese, Spanish, and, you know, others. And so it is a challenge when we do provide everything just in English. A lot of these portals are currently in English. So we've been talking about trying to do translation. I think that the translation app that the Air Center is using for this is very helpful in terms of accessibility. But I think that that is one thing that we need to look at, because I'm sure that we are missing out on a lot of activities due to language barriers. But we are all interested in trying to make it easier to find partners and activities. And so I think hopefully over the next 10 years, we can all work together and help integrate these activities so that it's easier to know who to contact for what activities and who's doing what.
Yes. So thank you really for mentioning this important language issue, because that goes really with the communities. We spoke, Abdoulaye spoke about the co-creation element, the co-design and the co-benefiting, and that can only go through language. I mean, if there are language barriers, it will not work. So yes, this is something. And then the other issue I wanted as well to mention, if we all keep in mind the big next decadal programs, which is one is the Decade for Ocean Science, the Decade for Biodiversity, the Decade for seabed mapping, and the Sustainable Development Goals. I think there we have as well a fantastic framework to which we can contribute and which will give us the benefits back. Thank you.
In terms of these portals for these networks, we have a comment asking how we could follow the activities, but as well as use these portals as a way to propose initiatives related to ocean literacy and capacity building. Is there a way for people to do that?
I have to look, I will take this message back to Sophia, our project coordinator for the Anchor project. And of course there is, because that is also one of our big work packages. We do have even an ocean literacy working group for the All Atlantic. So this is something, if people would like to connect, we, by all means, we will probably create a kind of marketplace for ideas facility. So where people can put what they would like to see. I think that's a great opportunity. Thank you for the question. And the Air Center could also help us with this. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that. The next, what are the priorities of the mission in the area of healthy oceans, seas, and coastal and inland waters? Do they include coastal ecosystems such as mangroves?
Yes, they do for the moment. I pointed out only, thank you for the question, what is proposed. I'm always referring to an advice that the European Commission has received from this high-level group. The 5 priorities are broken down in 17 actually targets. I hope that such a question would come. So I have the targets in front of me. And one is the regenerating marine water ecosystems as objective. And what we really would like to see is the active regeneration of 20% of degraded habitats by 2030. So, of course, denaturalize rivers and waters. So the whole issue of wetland and or reforestation of our coasts and coastal areas, that is something we are also looking into. So I hope that in about 6 months, we know much more how we are going to implement this and how we are taking it forward. But this is a very important area and target. Thank you.
Thanks. Our next question comes from Omnia. The youth of the Atlantic Oceans is a good point for youth to be involved in ocean science in the Atlantic region, but not just youth in the science realm, but also there's opportunities to be involved in the ocean. And so what types of cooperations could exist for youth wanting to work in the ocean realm for the Atlantic? So not only for science, but other ways to be engaged. And this is an open question.
I let other people first speak. I come in afterwards.
So I'll weigh in on one issue is that we are looking to expand citizen science activities, and I think marine litter is something that is very helpful, and the UN Environment Program is working with an organization called the Wilson Center to try to harmonize some of the collection so that the data can be integrated. So I think certainly that's an activity that youth can get involved in, as well as working on other activities for collecting information, especially in the days with cell phones and whatnot.
I will just add in, I think that it gets back to a previous question as well of, is there some place where we can bring together sort of a situational awareness of the ongoing research and the opportunities, and not just research, but what else is happening? Are there links to ongoing things such as we, for 23 years, have run the National Ocean Sciences Bowl, a quiz bowl competition for high school kids in the US. We just did this past year virtually. We even had a challenge match after the official competition with with 5 leading science PhDs in the US versus the actual winning high school team, and the high school team won by 1 question, by the way. Being able to put those things out there via the portals that are being built now, but what are the opportunities? We have opportunities for telepresence and virtual reality through ocean exploration activities, whether philanthropic or governmental. But we don't sort of have an organized structure to go and say, look at all this stuff, how do I get involved? And so I think that's where we need to really come together, look at the tools we have, because I think they're there. It's just a matter of bringing those who are doing things and getting them in a virtual room and say, again, going back to what is a priority? What is a thematic priority? But what are some low-hanging fruit? I go back to, we should have a single portal to know where every research ship in the Atlantic is going to be for the next couple of years. Now it's going to change. Priorities change, plans change. But if you know where it's going to go, and if we had an agreement that we were going to at least leave a couple of racks or a couple of spots open on these cruises for international cooperation from the youth, a program where they would submit a proposal, we could start to look at ways to really integrate in an all new format. And the good thing is, again, this virtual presence and the portals that are out there gives us the opportunity to make huge gains in that in short periods of time. So I just think we aren't, we really just got to get our stuff in the portals and all the tools we have and put them in one spot with the smart people around to figure this out. And finally, I know I'm going on, but we've got to get the youth to tell us how this would work. They have the answers. You, Emily, you, Leah, others that are out there certainly have some great ideas on how we can, what would make a difference and what would move, again, that ball forward down the field in the most efficient and effective type of manner. So just some ideas out there for you.
Thank you. Abdoulaye, would you like to chime in? I know you talked about community engagement through the Abidjan Convention, but can you talk about maybe focused on youth engagement?
Yes, thank you. I wanted just to add that the interest of associating young people is first of all to put pressure on adults because as Sigi mentioned it, young people are excellent ambassadors. We know about it even with our own children. The second is to encourage vocations and prepare the continuation of the action undertaken in terms of biodiversity conservation. Even if they are not pure scientists, their help can be decisive in disseminating and raising awareness. But I would say again, on this point as on others, it is important that the whole Atlantic is covered. Otherwise, actions in one part will be in vain if the rest is not covered. Thank you. I forgot to put my camera, excuse me.
No problem. Sigi, you have a comment.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted as well to link up with something else that we are trying now to do for rolling out our future mission, Ocean, the Starfish 2030. We have conducted a study, and it is now, we have a lot of evidence that people do not connect to the ocean. So that's simply because they live in landlocked areas, but also if they live only 20 kilometers away from the coast, their connection is far away already. So what we are looking at is kind of festivals or linking it to museums or bringing in the whole art and cultural parts so that we actually act on the emotions of people much more, and through that bring the beauties, the values and the benefits that the ocean holds for us much closer to them. So this is something we also need now to start working, I think, on the Atlantic. We have in Europe about 18 years ago launched the Researchers' Night Festival, which is always on the 26th of September. We could well organize an Atlantic Night Festival in future. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, what I'm hearing is this need for people to understand how connected they are to the ocean and with each other, regardless of where they live. So thanks for that. The next question.
Just if I can add something, Sigi, you are right. I think we have a lot to do to get people to understand that ocean is not only starting on the short line, but even in our kitchen, we are in the ocean because some action we are taking can have a lot of impact on ocean. So maybe we have a work to undertake to involve people in activities before the short line, to get them, to let them understand that even if they are in the continent, 20 kilometers or 15 or 300 kilometers away from the ocean, they are still in the ocean. Thank you.
Absolutely. We have to organize a MasterChef competition on the Atlantic.
Good idea.
I would definitely watch that. All right, next comment. And this is for Sigi. Are you planning to include other countries in the initiative or only South Africa, Brazil, Argentina, and Cape Verde?
It's open to all. It's only that we have formalized, of course, with agreements with those countries with whom we already have as well enhanced cooperation in science and technology. So anyone along and across the Atlantic, any country is really welcome. And we still have a lot of black spots because Mexico, we are in discussion with them. The whole Caribbean, we hope through the Blue Planet, who are very active in and on the Caribbean, to bring many more of those countries into the benefit of what we are doing for and along the Atlantic. Thank you.
If I can say a word about this, this is a good point because we, in my presentation, I mentioned the efficiency to think about the good scale. In our region, for example, we know that we have a lot of transnational challenges. And for example, we are discussing about creating an MPA between Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire. We have some issues about pollution with Mercure, we say, and if we undertake actions in one or two countries, we know that the western part of our region is well covered, but not the central, for example. So we need to think in a regional scale. Instead of working with 1, 2, or 3 countries separately, maybe it would be interesting to start by thinking on a regional scale involving the Secretariat, for example, the Abidjan Convention. As I mentioned, we have the mandate for the whole Atlantic coast. All the countries gave us a mandate. We are the sole institution having this mandate from the countries. So maybe we have a science and technology committee which hosts all of the experts of the Africa region. So maybe we need to see it, and then from the regional, we can jump into the countries and at national level, creating network and connections like this. Thank you.
Thank you, Abdoulaye. This is something definitively that we have started to discuss back in February this year. And many of you might have heard Minister Hayter on the first day informing and inviting everyone to a ministerial meeting that he's going to host as presidency. So we have every 6 months a European presidency, another EU member state taking on the presidency. And we have this great opportunity that the Portuguese presidency will organize a ministerial meeting on the Azores beginning of June, immediately after the event of the decade in Berlin. So that is definitively something we should explore and formalize. And I extend to everyone as well on behalf of the Portuguese presidency, which I could not even do, but we work very closely with Minister Hayter, and I'm sure he wouldn't mind that I extend an invitation to all those who listen to us and are part of this panel to come really to join us on the Azores. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, what I'm hearing is the importance of really focusing on the different scales that we want to work at, basin scale versus very local, but also including these mandates or these kind of political agreements to actually make this work happen at this scale. All right. So the next questions are for Abdoulaye. First is from Ibrahima. How could we follow the activities of the Abidjan Convention?
Sorry, can you come again, please?
Sure. How can we follow the activities of the Abidjan Convention?
Okay, thank you. First of all, I think I shared the contact of the Abidjan Convention. We have a newsletter. You can connect and subscribe to our newsletter. And we have a website, the abidjanconvention.org. You can follow our activities. We have also Facebook, and we are on the social medias, Facebook and Twitter mainly. We are improving our tools, and probably soon we will have a resource center, as I said. It will be launched, I think, in November, built with thanks to the US aid, so the government of United States and the IBM. So you can find us on the net. But you have our email address, so you can send us our message and subscribe to our newsletter. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, the Abidjan Convention has had a number of webinars this year, so it's exciting to see all the work that's being done in the region and connections between Abidjan and like Io Caribe across the Atlantic, and like the similarities between their work. So we have 1 minute left. I'm going to ask my last question, but the session is going to continue. If you look at the top of the chat, there is a link to the breakout room where we're going to continue this discussion. There's many more questions to get to, and we will get to them. So I'll end the session with this last, or end this part with one more question. How can we solve the current pollution situation in African oceans and the coast if we do not have the means, whether it's technical, financial, or human resources, to fully implement a circular economy?
This is for who?
For you.
Go, Sigi.
No, I just wanted to say that as part of really of our new commissioner, our new president, Ursula von der Leyen, also launched the EU-Africa cooperation as one of our really priorities. And within that, of course, the Abidjan Convention, but also now the ocean are gaining more and more importance. So we have our colleagues working in development. There are many programs. We already planned to reach out to them. We will try to make that information as well available on the Anchor website, because very often it is a lack of knowing where opportunities can be found. In terms of knowledge transfer, I think the many webinars that are taking place now, and as well the way that people can connect to existing projects and find up as well the results, is another really practical way of using the results. All the results that we publicly funded, because the European Union is publicly funded, we are using public money, are to be used freely by other people. So that's one way. If we can help disseminating, that really would be something where we would be as well very proud if we can enhance that.
All right, I'm going to cut it off right here, but we're not done. So if you want to continue the conversation, please join us in the breakout room. We still have time to address this question and many others in the chat.